Have you ever walked into a room and instantly forgotten why you went there? That moment of confusion is not a sign of a failing memory. It is a predictable, measurable glitch in how your brain compartmentalizes information. And it has a name: the doorway effect. You cross a threshold. Your hand pushes the door open. Your foot lands on the other side. And in that split second, the reason you entered the room vanishes. You stand there, scanning the space, trying to guess from the objects around you what your errand could have been. The shorter the distance between rooms, the more absurd the blank feels. From kitchen to living room, from hallway to bedroom. You were holding a thought like a physical object, and then the door stole it. Psychologists call this an event boundary. Your brain does not experience time as a continuous stream. It chops it into episodes. Each episode has a beginning, a middle, and an end. A doorway is a sharp marker of an ending. Your brain treats that step across the threshold as a signal to close one mental file and open another. Once the file closes, the details of the previous episode become harder to retrieve. The plan you set for yourself in the first room is now buried under the new file for the second room. Researchers have tested this in controlled settings. Gabriel Radvansky and his team at the University of Notre Dame designed a simple experiment. Participants moved between rooms in a virtual environment. They picked up an object from one table, carried it through a doorway, and placed it on another table. Then they were asked what object they had just carried. People forgot more often when they walked through a door compared to when they made the same pickup and drop-off in a continuous hallway with no door. The door itself was the trigger. The same effect held in real-world environments. Walk through a physical doorway, and your memory for what you were doing takes a measurable hit. The effect is not about physical distance or time. You can walk the same number of steps along a corridor and remember just fine. The key is the segmentation of events. Your brain constantly parses the world into chunks. When you enter a room, it updates its model of where you are and what you are doing. That update comes at a cost. The previous model is temporarily sidelined. The information active in your working memory gets shunted to long-term storage. To retrieve it, you need a cue. The room itself might not provide one if your errand had no visual marker. Your hippocampus is the structure responsible for this chunking. It encodes spatial boundaries and links them to memories. When you pass through a door, your hippocampus fires a pattern of neural activity that marks the transition. This pattern is called a boundary-related theta oscillation. It resets the current context. The reset is efficient for navigating the new space, but terrible for holding onto a goal that existed only in the old space. The workaround is simple in theory, but takes practice. You can beat the doorway effect by reinforcing the context of your goal before you cross a threshold. The most direct method is verbal rehearsal. Say the plan out loud as you walk. I am going to the kitchen to get scissors. Say it again as you step through the door. Scissors. The act of speaking forces your brain to hold the item in your phonological loop, a short-term buffer that resists the event boundary. You can also tie the goal to a physical object in the new room. If you need to grab a book from the bedroom, imagine the book sitting on your pillow while you walk through the door. That visual cue becomes a retrieval tag. Another tactic is to not cross the door at all when you can. If you realize you forgot why you entered, backtrack physically to the original room. Stand where you were when you formed the intention. That location is a rich source of contextual cues. The tiles, the lighting, the furniture all help your hippocampus reactivate the episode. You will often remember the errand the moment you step back into the first room. That is not superstition. It is reinstating the event boundary in reverse. Not every doorway triggers the effect equally. Familiar doorways in your own home produce a weaker effect than doorways in unfamiliar buildings. The more places you associate with distinct events, the sharper the segmentation. In your home, your brain already has many overlapping episodes in each room. The door is less of a reset button and more of a nudge. In a new environment, every door is a clean break. That is why hotel rooms and office corridors feel especially disorienting. You step into a strange room, and the mental page is blank. The effect extends beyond physical doors. Any marked event boundary can cause the same forgetting. Crossing a street, stepping off a bus, or moving from one task to a completely different task all trigger a similar reset. The doorway effect is just the most visible and relatable version because the boundary is literal and visible. You feel the moment of transition, but you also experience it when switching tabs in a web browser. Open a new tab to write an email and forget what you were about to type. The browser tab is a digital doorway. Your brain treats it as a new event. Research from Radvansky and others shows that the effect is not a sign of distraction or age-related decline. Younger and older adults both experience it, though older adults may have a harder time recovering the lost thought because their memory retrieval systems are slower. The doorway effect is a feature of normal brain function, not a bug. It evolved to help you move through the world without cluttering your mind with outdated information. When you walk into a new room, your brain clears the workspace to focus on the new environment. That makes sense if the new room contains a predator or a meal. It makes less sense when the new room contains a refrigerator and you need eggs. The paradox is that the brain cleans up information that might still be relevant. You do not need to remember every detail of the previous room, but you do need to remember the goal that brought you to the current one. The brain, however, cannot distinguish between trivial details and crucial intentions. It treats all information from the previous episode as part of the same file. The intention is just one item among many. Without rehearsal, it gets the same treatment as the color of the rug in the first room. You can test this on yourself right now if you are in a room. Pick a random object in the next room, walk to the doorway and stop. Before stepping through, repeat the object name twice, then cross. 6 out of 10 times you will still remember it. Now try the same without rehearsal. Walk through and see what happens. The difference is not theory. It is a measurable shift in working memory retention. The doorway effect also explains a related frustration. Walking into a room, seeing someone, and forgetting what you were about to tell them. The person is a salient cue, but the room is a stronger boundary. Your brain prioritizes the context of the new space over the planned message. The message was encoded in the previous context. Unless you rehearse it across the boundary, the message stays behind. One more nuance. The effect is stronger when the door is closed. An open archway produces less forgetting than a door that must be physically moved. The action of pushing or pulling adds a motor component that deepens the sense of a boundary. Your kinesthetic sense and your visual sense collaborate to mark the event as complete. What about the opposite experience? Walking into a room and realizing you needed something, but you cannot remember what it was, and then eventually remembering it hours later. That delayed recall happens because your brain, over time, reactivates patterns associated with the original context. The episode file is not deleted. It is just temporarily unavailable. Given the right cue, the information resurfaces. The door erased the active trace, but not the long-term trace. If you want to reduce the number of those blank moments, you do not need to change your memory. You just need to change how you cross boundaries. Pause at the threshold for 1 second. Form a clear image of your goal. Say it mentally. Then step through. That 1 second intervention can cut the forgetting rate by half, according to some estimates. The exact number depends on the person and the task, but the principle is solid. Rehearsal anchors the intention against the reset. The doorway effect is a small, everyday glitch that reveals something large about how your mind works. It shows that memory is not a static library, but a dynamic system constantly updating itself based on context. Forgetting why you walked into a room is not failure. It is the cost of being able to move through a world full of events. Each door is a reset that frees you up for what is next. The trick is to keep the important thing from getting left behind. And now that you know why it happens, you can choose to hold on to it.